Foreign Affairs Editor Geeta Mohan to get more details on those trilateral talks that took place. Geeta, any breakthrough at all? What was the nature of the conversation between the Indian and the Chinese foreign ministers?
Well, one thing was very clear, Rajdeep, even before the trilateral meeting was decided upon and agreed upon, that bilateral issues will not figure during the talks. Having said that, at a time when India-China are at their worst when it comes to ties, the foreign ministers coming together in a platform which in many ways was formulated to counter the Western advances certainly shows that India is intent in engaging China, in engaging Beijing as also Moscow. But this also comes at a time when Moscow has shown that it will stand by India even during such adverse circumstances to do with their strategic partner China, having agreed to sell arms to India and having agreed to continue defense cooperation with India.
Okay, Geeta Mohan saying India continuing to engage with China. That's a good point on which to turn to my other special guest at the moment. I'm joined by Gautam Bambawale, former envoy to China. And remember, he was the last envoy in that crucial period, 2017-18, when there was, of course, the Doklam standoff. Appreciate your joining us, Mr. Bambawale. How do you see what's happening at the moment? Do you believe we are, at the end of the day, in for a very long haul with China, given the kind of intransigence we've seen before the status quo ante can be restored in eastern Ladakh?
Yes, absolutely, Rajdeep. I think I agree with you entirely. What we have seen this summer in eastern Ladakh is something which has never happened for many decades earlier. The loss of lives on both sides, the Indian Army as well as the Chinese PLA, is something which, as you know, is happening after 45 years. So these are new times, these are unpredictable times. And I, for one, agree with you that I think it's going to be a long haul in restoring the status quo ante in eastern Ladakh prior to when all this started happening in end of April 2020.
You know, Mr. Bambawale, you were in China soon after Doklam 2017. You took over soon after. What is the difference you're seeing between how we were able to eventually settle Doklam and what could happen in eastern Ladakh? Is there a major qualitative difference?
I think there are two or three important differences. One is, of course, as many people have said earlier, that Doklam took place in what is Bhutanese territory. Here it is now in Indian territory in the sense that it is on the India-China border. Also, I think the aggressiveness of Chinese troops is something which is quite different from earlier standoffs and face-offs which we have had. And I think it is the fact that Chinese troops have violated all the measures that have been put in force earlier on maintaining peace and tranquility in the India-China border areas, which is the standout difference of this summer of 2020. And I unfortunately believe that, you know, all the agreements, there was a whole architecture of peace and tranquility measures which had been put in place from 1993 onwards, right up till 2013. Unfortunately, that architecture for maintaining peace and tranquility in the India-China border areas is now fallen by the wayside.
You know, that's the key. Why have the Chinese gone back on that? As someone who has watched this Xi regime closely when you were in Beijing, what explains? What has gone wrong suddenly? Has this something to do with Xi's own leadership, the way he sees his own future?
No, I think that's an excellent question, and many people, all of us, have been trying to grapple with it for many weeks now. There is, of course, concern on the Chinese side about Indian road building and infrastructure development in the border areas. There are other speculations, but I think one of the outstanding factors in this face-off standoff so far has been the tremendous aggressiveness on the Chinese side. And I believe that you're seeing such aggressiveness all around, not just on the India-China border, also in the South China Sea, in the Taiwan Straits. And what is beginning to happen is that as a result of COVID-19, you are also seeing this so-called wolf warrior diplomacy of the Chinese side. So China seems to be flailing around, or it seems to be taking taking all this personally, and seems to be flailing around, I would say, in all directions.
Well, what is the best way to respond? There have been various reactions, including possibly keeping Chinese 5G companies out of any future auction. Is that some kind of a messaging you believe that can be done, taking a tough stand on Chinese industry? Is that a way forward, or is it possible to strike new alliances, look at the Quad, America, Japan, Australia, strengthen ties with the US? How do you deal with this aggressive expansionist China in your view?
First of all, Rajdeep, what I would recommend is that we continue what we have been doing between India and China, which is, first, we need a strong military posture on the ground, which we have. And secondly, we should continue to maintain the channels of communication between India and China so that diplomacy also plays its role. So these are two sides of the same coin, as you know. Going ahead, I think I completely agree with you. It cannot be business as usual. I have been very supportive of this move to ban Chinese companies from participating in 5G trials and rollout in India. There are national security concerns there in any case. And now we must hit where it hurts, which is in the pocket. At the same time, I believe that what the Chinese have done on the border this summer is pushing India into a closer relationship, into a stronger partnership with democracies across the world. And those include the United States, Japan, Australia, even South Korea, and perhaps Indonesia. Mm-hmm. So I would say it's a little of all of these things, and that will stand us in good stead and send the right signals to China.
Just in conclusion, presumably we can't go back to the post-1962 scenario of a deep freeze, but neither presumably can we go into the bonhomie of the Jhulas in Ahmedabad and the Mamalapuram spirit of Prime Minister Modi and Xi. Do you think, in a sense, that we need a full reset, a much more pragmatic relationship with China now?
No, I think we will not see that level of bonhomie. Neither do I want to see a deep freeze. So I hope it will be somewhere in between. And that itself will be a reset in our policy regarding China. And I think that is essential, that I think that is required, and I think that is going to happen. So I would say that it has to be somewhere between a deep freeze and a bonhomie that we have seen in the recent past.
Okay, Mr. Bambawale, giving us your sense as someone who's dealt with the Chinese intimately in Xi's leadership in recent time. Thank you very much for joining us. Time for a reset in our relationship with China.
Hello everyone, this is Rahul Kamal here. Hope you enjoyed this video. For the latest news and analysis, like and subscribe the India Today YouTube channel, and don't forget to press the bell icon to stay updated.